Hey everyone!
Hola a todos.
This is Jahaira.
And this is Stephanie, and welcome to Cuento Crimen podcast.
Y aquí on the Cuento Crimen podcast, we are a true crime podcast and we bring a new case every Wednesday.
Cada miércoles.
And these are cases that don't get much media attention, so chances are you haven't heard of some of these cases.
And we cover these cases in Spanglish.
Así que agarra a tu abuelita, tu abuelito, tu mamá, tu papá, a quien tú gustes, and come join us every Wednesday for a new true crime case.
So this case happened only a couple days after Ingrid Escamilla's case, which we covered last week. And these cases aren't connected, but because they happened back to back, it caused a lot of protests and honestly, like a public outcry.
Yeah, and si no han escuchado el caso de Ingrid Escamilla, which was last week's, please go do so before or after this episode. Again, como dijo Steph, no están conectados, but it was just like back-to-back cases, and como dijiste también, it's in the same region, so
yeah. We also read some stats on this case. So 10 women a day die in Mexico, and that's
a big number.
Big number, like every day.
And CNN reported that according to Mexico Attorney General Alejandro Hertz, femicides, the killing of women on account of their gender, have increased by 137% in the last 5 years. A total of 1,006 were reported in 2019 compared with 912 the year before.
I think any increase is a big increase.
Yeah.
If anything, we should be working the other way, like decreasing that number.
This one went up like over 100%. It's insane. Y como dijimos cuando estamos empezando un episodio, like this is another femicide case. And today is Fatima's case. Y ella era tan solo una niña de 7 años. Ella nació el 8 de enero del 2013 to her father, José Luis Rivera, who has dementia, and her mother, María Magdalena Anton, who has a mental illness. Fátima es la hija más chiquita de la familia y todos decían que tenía un corazón bonito.
She was last seen on Tuesday, February 11th, being picked up from her primary school by an unidentified woman. And this is all located in Ciudad de Mexico.
La mamá de Fátima was running late, maybe 15 to 20 minutes late. She was caught in traffic, and when she got there, her daughter was nowhere to be seen.
And it happens, right? Running late, And 15, 20 minutes isn't that much.
It's not too bad, yeah.
It's not too bad. And as educators, you probably stay extra.
Yeah.
There's always someone there who stays extra to make sure, all the kids are being picked up.
Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah. And so ella llegó y estaba preguntando where her daughter was, pero nadie sabía dónde estaba. No one had seen her. There was one person that said that they saw her with a man, and ella pensó que a lo mejor, su esposo fue a recogerla. Pero cuando ella le llamó to confirm, did you pick up Fatima? He was like, no.
And I think that's the scary realization. Si se fue sola la niña, es muy diferente a saber que se fue con alguien.
Yeah.
And in Mexico, it is common for kids to walk home. But still, the school is being criticized for not calling the police to take care of this. Why not call the parents and get an update? You guys just left it.
Yeah, I think, it is common for kids to walk home here, too. Yeah. But I think they try to wait for, third grade or something.
I think, in the school that I work with, it is only 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And they have to bring a note home, a signed paper from a parent saying my child is going to walk home and I am okay with it.
Yeah.
So it's if you don't have that form, no te dejan que te vayas solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that not anyone can pick up your kid. You have to check IDs.
Yeah.
If you don't recognize the person, you have a file of who is allowed, right? Puede ser una tía, tío, that doesn't come very often. So there's lot of...
That reminded me. Oh,
what?
This is a sidetrack. But speaking of that, my nephew, cuando estaba en el kinder or in el preschool, I can't remember, my sister was running late. And so she sent my cousin who lived down the block to go pick him up. Keep in mind, he knew her. He knows our cousin. And when my cousin got there to pick him up, he refused to leave with her.
Really?
And the teacher asked him, do you know this person? And my cousin was like, yeah, I'm his tía, And he was like, no, I don't know her. And so they called my sister. And, they, were saying that this was happening. But anyways, That's good though,
yeah,
right?
It's
Because
good.
it like prevents things like this
Yeah.
from happening. But yeah, anyway,
That's kind of funny because you said kinder.
no, I think it was preschool.
Okay, it's a little younger.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like you obviously knew who this person was, but he probably thought it was strange. Like, why is my mom not picking me up?
Yeah.
So, and my sister picked up right after my mom about the whole uno nunca sabe. Like, my niece and my nephew are embedded with that. Like, don't do this because you never know. Like, you can't trust people. So, I wonder if his little brain picked that up or something.
Aw.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, y'all. That was a little.
But yeah, see, there's like a process, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's these systems like put into place so that you know, accidents and like tragedies won't happen. Entonces the school doesn't have an answer of where Fatima is, right? So the family is like looking for her, doing everything they can. You know, they weren't getting lucky, and so it was al otro día que la reportaron desaparecida. So now this is February 12th, because of course the authorities also made them wait to report her missing. And they did do an Amber Alert at almost 24 hours later. And they stated that she was taken by a man.
I think it's ridiculous that they had to wait the whole day. Like, first of all, she's a minor. Tiene 7 años la niña. Y alguien te está diciendo que se fue con un señor. And I feel like if this was like a family member or something, it would have been quick. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been quick to find her. Like, if, say, like, yeah, it was her tío que la venía a recoger. Like, I'm sure he would have been in communication with her mom. Like, hey, ya recogí a Fatima. Or, like, hey, ya te la voy a llevar because it's now been a day.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Y también, like, esperar tanto tiempo. And I feel like, obviously, like, she was at school. So, if anything, y'all should be moving faster.
Yeah.
Because someone is going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So
or, like, what if this man is just kind of coming back for children?
Yeah. And so la institución de la C5, this is where they have cameras at different places, different angles of the city. And through all that footage, they were able to find Fatima con una señora. And Fatima was released from the school to this woman. And Fatima acted like she knew her, at least like from the video. Like, it seems she was just comfortable. She talked to her, and that's why, you know, she was released to her. And in the cameras, she was last seen at 6:40 de la tarde. Y se metieron a un carro blanco that just drove away. And, like, that's the last footage that they have of her.
And, you know, it's one thing that I thought about, too. Like, la persona que vino por ella la tenía que haber conocido de una forma u otra. Because, like, okay, you just came from after school or, like, are getting off of school. And someone is there clearly to pick you up, right? Like, no es otro motivo of, like, oh, I have candy or nothing else and I'm here to get you. So I feel like it had to be someone that she knew in order for her to feel comfortable to say, like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go, which makes it scarier. Y en el video que Stephanie estaba describiendo, Fatima está tranquila. And although they couldn't get a clear face of the woman, she seemed to be on the other hand. Like, she seemed worried. She seemed kind of paranoid. And I think it's because she knows she's guilty. Like, she knows what she's doing.
And so in the video, están caminando maybe for like 15 minutes. And then that's when they get inside that white car.
And that's crazy, too. Like, te parqueas 15 minutos de la escuela de tu hija.
That's a far walk, yeah.
And some people thought that it was una señora que vendía papas afuera de la escuela, but after interviewing her, that individual cleared out. And originally, like, when we were researching the case, that was my first thought, too. Like, maybe it was someone from, like, a seller outside a vendor. But, yeah.
And they were also able to create a sketch of her. And as time is going, también there was some suspicion de una tía abuela. Entonces, they kind of like look into her porque tiene el parecido de la señora from the video. But, you know, la tía abuela comes forward and she's like, you know, just talking to authorities and answering all their questions. She was vocal about like that she had nothing to hide and she was very cooperative and she was cleared out.
And at this point in the case, they offered a reward. Ofrecieron 2 millones de pesos in return for any information on Fatima.
And so 4 days later, on February 15th, someone called in with some information. Llamaron sobre un cuerpo que estaba localizado south of Mexico City, and it was a body that was found in a plastic bag.
And for a while, this body was unidentified. Como dijimos al principio del episodio, el papá de Fatima, José Luis Rivera, had dementia, and her mother, Maria, dealt with a mental illness. And for that reason, they, I guess, no one really talked to them to identify the body. And so investigators had to wait for the DNA results to come in, which was on February 16th, just the next day. And that is when it was confirmed that this was Fatima's body.
And so now they, are focused on like finding who did this to Fatima.
Who's responsible.
Yeah. And so really their only hint is this woman in the video. And they really don't know where she's from, where she could live. Like, they don't have that information. They turn to the public so they can get some help on identifying this woman.
Se lo pueden imaginar, la familia está destrozada. Perdieron a su bebé. Y toda la familia de Fátima estaba bien enojada con la policía porque they felt and believed no les ayudaron mucho con el caso de Fátima. Ellos dicen que si hubieran buscado más pronto, like as soon as concerns were raised, a lo mejor Fátima llegaría a casa con vida. Like, it could have played out differently, right?
It could have, because, they spent time in taking the report and things that shouldn't have taken that long. It makes sense why the family will wonder, like, oh, I wonder if, like, they were to take the case serious, like, maybe they could have gotten there on time.
We've all dealt with what ifs.
Yeah, the what ifs, I think, are really, like, the heaviest thing.
Yeah.
And so moving on with the case, there was one person that was able to identify the woman in the video, and it was the landlord. Along with more neighbors in that area, they all described the woman in the video to look and dress like this woman, right? And this woman lived en un apartamento in Mexico City y que también no era muy lejos de la casa de Fátima.
Y las autoridades fueron a revisar el apartamento, pero cuando llegaron lo encontraron abandonado. Pero sí encontraron fotos y los zapatos de Fátima. También la ropa de la señora que llevaba puesto el día que desapareció Fátima estaba allí. Y se puede ver en el video para ver la ropa, they kind of like matched it up and it's the same one.
Entonces la policía está hablando con los vecinos to get some information as to why did they leave, cuándo se fueron, and just try to get as much information. Y los vecinos dicen que se habían ido hace 2 días.
Dang, imagine 2 days. That is crazy. They showed Fatima's mom the pictures of the suspects and the woman in the video and her husband as well.
Y cuando la mamá de Fátima ve estas fotos, ella right away realizes that she knew this woman. Esa señora se llamaba Gladys, and she's known her for 2 years.
María le rentó un cuarto a Gladys, so, she knew her well, y le rentó este cuarto junto con sus hijos porque Gladys estaba en una relación abusiva. Y entonces, Maria was trying to give her a helping hand, and she let her come live in this room in their home.
Entonces, cuando María se dio cuenta que, this woman that she helped is the person who took her daughter, she was in shock. Like, she couldn't believe that she was capable of doing something like that, Y también más porque esta señora también es una mamá. So how does that, how would you do something like this to someone else's child?
Yeah.
She just couldn't process that. She did say que she wouldn't question it so much from her husband, Mario Alberto Reyes Nájera, because of his character, she knows that he's abusive, so she wouldn't think it was too out of the picture from him, but she was super shocked about Gladys.
Cuando leímos así casos of kids being abducted or kidnapped, it usually is always a person that right? It's always a person kind of close to the family, a family friend, or, someone that So I can only imagine, just the shock. Como dices tú, la confianza que le tenías a esa persona.
Yeah.
And they stabbed you in the worst possible way.
In the worst possible way. And now it's making sense porque, Fátima conoce a esa señora.
Yeah.
So por eso sí se fue con ella.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too. And so the authorities finally released a picture to the public of Gladys and Mario, as they were both wanted for questioning.
So their full names is Gladys Giovanna Cruz Hernández y su esposo Mario Alberto Reyes Nájera. And so they have arrest warrants and would be charged of kidnapping with intent to cause harm and more charges such as murder. At that point, they were saying those charges could be added.
And also, just a side note, the sketch that they released of Gladys was not accurate whatsoever. And it actually ended up looking a lot more like Fatima's tía abuela. I feel like it must have been tough for su tía abuela, you know, like, no, it's not me.
Yeah.
Like, who you want. So just a little fact that we wanted to throw in there.
Mm-hmm. And so now, like, the biggest question, ¿dónde están, right? ¿Dónde está Gladys y Mario? And so it turns out that they were at Mario's aunt's house, que se llama Irma Reyes Castaneda, in Mexico City. And they had not talked to each other in 15 years, but she took them in for a couple of days because, I mean, yeah, they haven't talked to each other in years. He's, you know, they're related. And so she just took them in, right?
Yeah,
like, it's family.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, see a family member comes in saying, we need help.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it takes a lot to just close the door.
Yeah.
Mario, Gladys y sus hijas llegaron allí y le estaban pidiendo que si les podía rentar un cuarto. Irma, así se llamaba la señora, had no idea that they had just committed a crime. And like Steph was saying, you know, they're family at the end of the day, so she just took them in.
She had no idea what was going on hasta cuando vio las fotos de ellos en la televisión. And that's when she goes to confront them, like ask them what was going on. And they did confess to her. Gladys was crying and Mario was pointing fingers to Gladys. And Gladys does admit to it all. And Mario is asking his aunt to help him. And he's pointing fingers to his wife. So he is pretty much just asking the tía to only help him.
So he's kind of like putting the blame on her. Like, oh, ella es la que lo hizo. Ella está loca. Yo no hice nada. Ayúdame. That's messed up.
Yeah.
That is pretty messed up. And, you know, Gladys is over there. She's crying. And like Steph dijo, like she finally confesses that Mario told Gladys to look for a young girl that he could spend the rest of his life with. Él quería una novia pequeña, una novia chiquita.
Yeah, así lo leímos en los artículos, que quería una novia chiquita. And it sounds like so gross to even say it, you know. I can't, like, the fact that we're saying it out loud to me is like, we shouldn't be saying those words out loud.
It's cringe. Like,
yeah.
It's what?
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Y Gladys le dice que, pues, ella se sintió que no podía hacer nada other than to listen to him because Mario threatened her that he would rape their daughters instead.
That makes me so sad for her to hear because it's like, here you have this man threatening you and kind of is making you do this horrible thing, which now you're guilty of, and it's like, I don't know, it's nasty.
It's all nasty, like, yeah, and it's hard because, like, we don't know her situation, like I wish she would have just left. Yeah, like, honestly, if anyone out there is listening, like, just remember, you can ask for help. I know it's not easy, obviously, but I think, you know, I don't know, it's just, I'm just trying to process how this person is and literally like I don't know. Anyways, so when she went out to look for a little girl, she was already thinking of Fatima since she knew her and, you know, she just thought that it would be the easiest way out and that no one would notice in her family, probably because of like her parents' conditions and all that stuff, which is really sad. So Gladys said that she took Fatima home and that she dressed her up for Mario. Oh my God. And she admits that, you know, Mario did sexually abuse her. And it's just... it's sad. Yeah, I have no words. It's just disgusting. And then she also, like, finds the need to explain how Fatima was crying and just crying nonstop y que nomás exigía que por favor la llevaran a su casa, que ella se quería ir. And she just was not, like, she was insisting. Like, ella no paraba. Like, I mean, can you imagine, first of all, like, you just got kidnapped and you're getting sexually abused by a grown man. Like, how are you just gonna sit there and be quiet, you know? Gladys says that because of this, it got really hard to hide Fatima from society. Yeah, and especially, like, with, you know, an investigation going on, you know? And so, ella dice que they murdered her by choking her with 2 belts. And they did this when authorities started to look for her. And then after they killed her, they, of course, dumped her body. Como habíamos dicho, Mario trató de pedir ayuda a su tía. Y ella aceptó, pero ella nomás dijo eso para, you know, make time, right? Para poder ella entregarlos a la policía. Which I think that's, like, a great plan. Yeah. And also, like, even though they're family, she was going to turn them in, you know? Entonces, el plan era que iban a culpar a Gladys, pero la tía nomás decía eso, just to go along with the story, pero ella los iba a entregar a los dos.
Y ella salió de su casa y se encontró a su hermana y a su cuñado. Y ahí es donde ella les pidió ayuda y les dice todo lo que Gladys y Mario le acaban de decir. And she tells them to please call it into police.
Mm-hmm. Entonces Irma goes back y les dice que iban a llevar a Gladys a entregarla. And so once they are stepping out of the house, en eso los policías están en el, approaching the area because they were, called in already.
Which is great. I love that. It just
perfect timing.
Yeah. And that's when they were arrested. They had a drone circulating the house as well. I think that popped up in a few articles that we read. And they were just completely stuck.
Mario thought he was going to get his way out by just blaming his wife.
Yeah.
Y Mario y Gladys tratan de, pagarles the cops and to free them. I mean, that's not going to work because, it's kind of like national.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for you.
And also, they wanted to pay police $26.
Yeah, that's not.
Come on.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Gladys did show remorse, but Mario didn't. She says how she did it because she basically felt like la espalda contra la pared. Like it was either someone else's daughter or her own daughters. And I don't know, I feel like also Mario not showing any remorse might have been him trying to play the card of I didn't do anything, so I have nothing to be sorry about type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like it's a lot to unpack because yes, Gladys felt like she had no choice, but she could have left. And also the no remorse too, for Mario's part, that's scary because let's say they did get away with it for a while. Mario, I don't know, he could want more. You're not safe.
Yeah.
Even though, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gladys, you're not safe there and your daughters aren't safe there.
I feel like he would have definitely tried to have done it again.
Yeah. Entonces, they take her children and they were physically checked. And unfortunately, they were able to find that her kids were also being abused.
I mean, it must have hurt her, and it was probably also a little slap on the face. This man was not on your side. And their sentence hasn't been said yet, but it is speculated that it can be up to 100 years in prison.
And so, the whole community is destroyed because this is a little girl, and there was so much trust in schools for them to release your child to people who are meant to pick them up.
Yeah.
Entonces, this started a plan for the prosecutor's offices, ahí en la Ciudad de Mexico, to be kind of more alert and care for the children who are not picked up until, the parents arrive.
And officials also plan to kind of come up with protocols and just a better system to identify people who are picking up kids from school. También pusieron security cameras, and they were also thinking of having workers in one solid uniform and having a security guard at the drop-off pickup area while the dismissal was happening. And I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think we were kind of talking about that earlier and throughout the episode, just stricter protocols. Families trust schools and the educators. There has to be more safety systems. So I think that's really great that, they're acting and trying to improve the system so this won't happen again. Fatima's case, it created marches, it created protest. And that's how a whole movement started. Un día sin nosotras, a day without Mexican women. And this is el 9 de marzo, which is the day after International Women's Day.
Yeah, Un día sin nosotras is a day, like Steph was saying, without women in Mexico. Women were not going to go to work. We're not going to go to school. Just not participating in anything. And this movement began because of the harsh crimes against women, like we talked about in this case a little bit, and a little bit more in Ingrid's case. The femicide rate is incredibly high. They just wanted to prove this point, ni una más, ni una menos,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is really nice to see that women coming together and kind of joining this movement to really show the impact, right? Women matter. And in this case, Fatima was just a little girl and she was a victim of a femicide.
I mean, imagine 7 years. Ella que sabía de la vida. She didn't deserve that. And no one does, to be honest. So I'm glad that, you know, there's movement happening y si han habido cambios. And like, of course, we know that change comes kind of at a slow pace. But como dice Steph, en veces de or how do you say the quote about justicia?
La justicia tarda pero llega.
Yeah, that's Steph's dicho.
So that's all that we have for today's case. We encourage y'all to go listen to the last week's case. We are so thankful for y'all tuning in every week, every Wednesday. We're super thankful. And we do ask y'all to rate us on Spotify or leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts. Like, pretty please. It's been a while since we received one on Apple Podcasts.
Actually, yeah.
So it would be really great if a few of y'all can go leave us a review on Apple Podcast. That would be amazing. And yeah, we will see y'all next week.